Hello, everybody. Back to our DevOps slash SRE interview questions. As I mentioned in the previous video, I'm going to try and focus on this a little bit more than I have in the past because there's a lot of interest in my subscribers to deal with this topic more than technical coding kind of things. So I will focus on that. So I did a video earlier that had other questions. As you can see, I'm planning to go through many more that I could come up with that people have asked me in the past. That I've asked other people. These are generally geared to a junior SRE slash DevOps position, but some of them could apply to senior roles as well. But anyway, you get the idea. So the first question I want to talk to you about today is a situational question. It's Friday afternoon, a developer pings you on Slack and says, hey, I have this urgent need to take something live. And you are basically the gatekeeper in this scenario. Generally, if the company is mature in their SRE practices, developers could take things live as they need. It's the whole idea of CICD, pipelines and automation and whatnot. But let's assume for a second that in this particular company, you are operations, you are the SRE, and they kind of need your help / permission to get something live. What do you do? Here, the interviewer is actually looking for your maturity in terms of thinking as to the risk versus reward of taking something live on Friday afternoon. So the things to talk about as answer to this question is, first of all, politely you should ask why is it urgent? Because why is it coming up now as opposed to some kind of planning process that would have included the SRE team? So you should mention that we should do a postmortem either way if we go through with this or not as to why this came up at the last moment. You should challenge the notion that this is urgent, because a lot of times what's urgent for a development group is not what's urgent at the company level or customer level or SRE level, right? So you should challenge that. The developer should be able to tell you why it's urgent, why it needs to go live Friday afternoon, as opposed to why it can't wait. If you don't get a solid answer, you really should say no, because in that case, the developer would have the chance to escalate, and he or she goes to escalate. The real truth of this matter will come out. Your manager or the engineering manager would have already talked about this. They would probably side with you as to why it's not a good idea to take something live on Friday afternoon, because it can cause, it comes with a risk. Now, if it's something that's customer impacting, we should figure out why the incident wasn't happening, why it is urgent, and so on and so forth. So you should really talk about the whole 360 gamut of why we're in this position to begin with and what we could do. Now, if it's truly urgent, sure, you say yes, but then you ask what things like, what is the rollback plan if something didn't go as planned, right? How would the developer or the QA test if it was successful or not, right? And what it actually is involved in this change, that sort of thing. So those are all the parameters of taking something live that you should mention. Moving forward, next question: what kind of CI/CD have you done? This question can come in many different forms. Basically, a good chunk of core of what an SRE does is the CI/CD pipeline and automation of it, right? So you should be able to articulate a story about what CI/CD pipelines you built or managed or modified or improved or created, that kind of thing. What tool did you use? What kind of coding was involved? What kind of automation did it take place in the process? Be sure to include as much detail as possible. Try not to be shallow, because that tells the interviewer that your experience was not as hands-on as it needs to be. If you're new to DevOps, you really should talk about all your projects that you might have done yourself. That way, it comes across as authentic. All right, moving on. Next thing is an agile topic: Scrum versus Kanban. Which have you used and why? If we don't know, this is two main ways of implementing agile processes, which is a whole bigger topic. But from the DevOps perspective, generally speaking, people use Kanban because it's very hard to predict what you can deliver in the next 2-3 weeks sprint in a Scrum methodology. Generally speaking, SRE people use Kanban because that's more of a flow as opposed to an end-to-end kind of, this sprint we will deliver this, next sprint we'll deliver that. That generally doesn't happen in the SRE space. Generally, it's a Kanban kind of process where things continue for a while. However, even in Kanban, you should talk about retrospective. We should talk about how the delivery should be quick, meaning you should not have tickets and issues that last for weeks. It should be more like days, maybe even a day. That way, your planning really should include pieces that are small, right? So it's a continuous delivery even within the Kanban space. All right, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like and subscribe. That really helps me with the YouTube's algorithm, and I will see you in the next video.